Welcome to today's program, Securing Your Firm's Future, ISO 27001 Advantages. I'm Ala Policastro, Director of Education and Professional Development at Beverly Hills Bar Association. I am delighted to introduce our speakers for this morning, Nelly Spieler and Will Liu. Nelly is an assurance and advisory partner at Frank Rimmerman. She has nearly 20 years of auditing, consulting, and management experience working with companies worldwide. She currently leads the firm's IT audit practice, which includes all service areas involving cybersecurity, privacy, IT audit, and compliance. Nelly leverages her expertise in cloud security, information systems, and controls in an array of topics in the governance, risk, and compliance field. Will is a seasoned security and compliance consultant with more than 20 years of experience guiding technology companies through ISO 27001 and other regulatory frameworks. A certified chief information security officer, registered practitioner, he delivers trusted expertise in risk management, security, program development, and compliance readiness. We can't wait to hear what they have to share with us today, so I'm going to turn it over to them.
Thank you, Ala. Good morning, everyone. As Ala mentioned, I am Nelly Spieler. I am a partner at Frank Rimmerman, leading technology assurance and risk management group. My firm is a nationally accredited or licensed independent auditor specializing in external third-party certification for global security standards like ISO 27001. And I'm pleased today to co-present with Will, who is a partner by Model Group. Will's firm specializes in the practical side of security, building, implementing, and maturing security programs for the firms, and they ensure you have the relevant security controls in place and assist firms like yours with getting ready for the formal security certifications that my firm provides. And our joint presence today is to offer a unified perspective on this topic. Our focus is not to instill fear, but to provide a clear educational overview of the ISO 27001 standard and the security program it requires. The security program also referred to as ISMS, or Information Security Management System. We'll use this term synonymously. The goal is to ensure that you have knowledge to make informed strategic decisions about your firm's security and security governance. Will, do you want to add anything or introduce yourself?
I appreciate the background and introduction, Ala and Nelly. So just real quick, I'm very passionate about security and privacy. So these are all key aspects of information security. Especially from the legal side.
We'll discuss several key areas. First, we'll talk about some security risks, some risks about safeguarding your client's data, as well as the true comprehensive cost of security failure. Beyond the obvious financial loss, a breach or ransomware attack creates immediate demand on your time, on your internal resources, that is required for incident handling, possibly mandatory regulatory reporting. A breach or an incident may put your firm's reputation at stake, and your clients may question if you are properly safeguarding their information. Whatever, their trust is at stake. Second, we'll explain why the solution must be more strategic, more holistic system, more like a program that governs people, processes, not just technology. Think of it as this way. So security products that you may purchase, they may be implemented as like locks and alarms on your office doors. Security program, though, is the entire security protocol, including who has the keys, the procedures for when the alarm sounds, the training for people to sort of how to log those or how to use those locks and respond to alarms. It's the difference between buying tools and adopting a security repeatable operational practice. And third, and quite important, we will detail the process and why ISO 27001 is the most credible, globally recognized validation of your security program. We will talk about basic steps and basic phases of getting you certification and maintaining your certification. Why it's important for many large corporate clients and enterprises, this certificate is no longer optional when you work with them. They now require professional services firms with whom they share essential, sort of a sensitive, confidential data to obtain the security certs. So achieving and maintaining the certs would demonstrate to your corporate clients the maturity of your firm. So ultimately, by the end of this session, our goal is that you'll be able to recognize that information security is a strategic business enabler. Our goal is to leave you with the roadmap for transforming possibly your firm's security from a source of anxiety into more of a competitive asset that can help you to grow business and to win more business. So I'll pass it to Will to start us with discussion of different security risks that law firms may face.
All right, great. Thanks, Nelly. Next slide, please. The stakes are high. So this slide is really about just making sure everybody understands how important data privacy security is all about. For any law firm, especially all the ones that you guys are part of, the attorney-client privileges, as you guys are fully aware, is a legal requirement to maintain and ensure confidentiality. So information security is very similar in that way, where we build a strong security program that focuses highly on the securitization of your data, your assets, and so forth. So really it's about making sure we're able to protect the data that you're entrusted by your clients to handle and to protect and keep confidential. So today's breaches can be very costly and can be very impactful to your business. And often it leads to catastrophic events. And I'll talk to you a little bit about this in the next section in terms of costs, but let's focus on what breaches can happen. So nowadays, breaches are very common. You'll read it very often in the news. You'll hear about some ransomware attack, either from a financial organization, potentially even your Targets, your Home Depots. You've seen all those. The ones that are most impactful to you are the ones that expose your private information. We call it PII, privately identifiable information in the industry. And those have great consequences when your social security number, date of birth, addresses, phone numbers, etc. are all exposed. So those kind of breaches can lead to catastrophic consequences, especially with identity theft being so prevalent these days. But in terms of your law firms, confidentiality breaches your requirement to your client to be able to protect that information. So potentially it can lead to lawsuits or disbarment of your firm, especially if it's found that you guys were not having due diligence and protecting that data in a secure way. And obviously the reputational damage could be huge. In terms of litigation disruption, if you guys are already working on critical cases and there's certain deadlines to be met, so forth, you may miss those because you will not have access to that data. Who knows how that data potentially could be compromised, or maybe it can be deleted, or maybe it can be exfiltrated somewhere else. All those things could be very disruptive and impactful to your business. So a lot of law firms these days will probably use what we call SaaS, software as a service, meaning applications that are hosted on the cloud side. And from those vendors, the expectations is also the same, is to protect your data that you're sharing on their platforms on behalf of your clients. So it's also, so information security, if you want to look at it from that perspective, is also about understanding your third-party vendors that you use and making sure that they meet the contractual obligations to protect your data as well as while they're providing the service to you. So in terms of intellectual property theft, this could be a very big deal as well. A lot of firms that are in the process of mergers and acquisition, there's a lot of intellectual property that's shared between businesses. So if there's any of that theft that could be leaked out or any of those financial information, it could be very impactful to both businesses, or potentially it could be very embarrassing as well. So that needs to be highly protected. And just to think in general, from a Wall Street perspective, public companies are required to provide financial updates every single quarter. So if that information is compromised early, obviously there's potential financial risk associated with that as well. And then finally, the reputational and financial loss. This can, again, be extremely impactful to your business because once the incident has been publicized and it's already on the internet, then potentially the next client will find that information on your law firm, and it potentially can make your competitiveness very poor against other firms. So reputation will be harmed in this way. Next, please, Susie. So what is the best way to identify risks for your organization? So when we think about risk, and we're really thinking about formulating how we're going to build out our information security management system. As Nelly has mentioned, that will be synonymously used with building a strong security program. I just want to point out something really quick. Information security shouldn't be conflated with information technology. Your IT support staff that's typical, that supports your laptops, installs software, provides these services. Information technology is more focused on being able to deliver services to you as an employee, as a lawyer or attorney to the firm, and to enable these services so you can transact and process and transmit information between you and your clients. Whereas information security is really focused on the protection of that data. So the securing, protection, and the compliance aspects, especially in the legal healthcare field, we have a lot of government regulatory expectations that are required for all the different providers out there. So those are the very important key pieces and differentiation between IT and information security. So typically when we go through and understand how to address the risks or identify the risks with an organization, we have to understand their assets. So what is an asset? Assets are really the people, processes, technologies within your business. In terms of the data, data can be anything proprietary, all the intellectual property, anything that's not publicly available. That's going to be very, very important in terms of what your data is. In terms of technology, those are the resources that are able to provide those services for you. These potentially could be the servers, the cloud storage, or the SaaS services that I mentioned that enable the technology to allow the digitization of services for you. And then, of course, the people, you guys, the employees, the partners, the contractors, anybody that's working within the firm that potentially have access to information that could be harmful if it was exposed. Those are key assets as well. And of course, processes as well. How do we handle information processing? So understanding what that process looks like in terms of the workflow, supply chain, that's inherent across a lot of different industries outside maybe the legal side. Those are very key in understanding what those assets are. So once we have identified the assets, what do we do with this information? So our goal from a security firm and security partner is we want to make sure we understand what kind of risks are associated with those assets. We go through this process of threat identification, so risk assessment of each of those assets, and we come up with a risk score. And risk scores are typically focused on likelihood of an event or an incident happening and the impact of it. So impact sometimes can be the cost of the asset. So in the security world, we typically have a saying that the specific control to protect an asset should never cost more than the asset itself. So for example, if you have some intellectual property that is worth, let's say quantitatively $2 million, you probably should not be spending more than $2 million to protect that asset. So it should be a fraction of the cost and should be applicable to the business. And based on that, that's how you typically figure out what those controls are. So in terms of threat identification, we ask these kind of questions and build out a risk register. And that's typically a exercise that should be done on an annual basis. And this all, of course, aligns with the ISO 27001 standards and any security framework out there. So just to give a word about security frameworks, ISO 27001, again, is a great one for any small, medium, large size organization because it provides the foundational pillars and processes that are applicable to having a sound, solid security program. So there are many other frameworks out there, but ISO stands for International Standards Organization, is widely accepted globally, and it has created a set of standards that focuses on organization, physical security, technologies, and people. So those are the 4 key pillars of ISO 27001. And all this wrapped together forms the basis for your firm's assets and risks. And then the last piece I'll talk about is the vulnerability assessment. So this is where we can conduct internal audits. Internal audits really assess your security program based on your policies, your procedures, and the risks within your organization, and making sure the organization is following the policies and procedures. So we would go through the process of going through each of the controls and evaluating if the evidence supports that you guys have a strong control, or maybe there's a gap that exists, and so forth. That evaluates how strong or how mature your security program is. And then Nelly's firm does the official certification. So if a firm does want to go through a certification process and get that label and that stamp, which is often very useful, and companies use that as a marketing tool to show their commitment to security, privacy, and so forth. And it really helps clients to understand that you really care about security as a firm. So those are the core aspects of having a strong certification. So again, that proves to your customers your commitment in that area. And of course, we can also do technical scanning and penetration testing. That's ways of looking for weaknesses or vulnerabilities within the technology that supports your data. So that could be scanning your laptops, your endpoints, your servers, or even your SaaS providers that provide the services on your behalf. All right, next, please. So this slide is about the cost of inaction in terms of what's been surveyed within the industry. So this comes from a IBM report that came in earlier this year, and it evaluated the cost of a data breach. So data breaches in general cost a business around $4.5 million. For legal firms, actually, it's slightly more. It's a little bit over $5 million. So you might ask yourself, why is it so costly? Why would it cost $5 million? Well, there's a lot of different pieces associated with it. So when a firm, especially a larger one, or maybe a medium size, or even a government entity, they have to go through the forensics piece of it. So they have to understand the root cause analysis. So a lot of those resources could potentially end up being contracted from the outside firms during those times. And that's why all the costs can build up along with the internal resources that are required to be able to support it. So it might require additional communication. Again, when there's a catastrophic incident that does happen, most companies will spend quite a bit very quickly. So where sometimes they do skimp a little bit is during the initial security program build out, they may not want to spend a lot because they may not initially see the value of it. But when an incident like this and the cost goes up, companies quickly realize what that financial impact looks like. And it's very important to learn the lessons of other businesses. So again, you'll see a lot of this traversing on the internet, being publicized on the news. So the key thing is don't become a victim. Protect yourselves. You never know when it's going to happen. And a lot of industry security leading experts often say it's always a matter of when. So even though you may not have been breached at this point, but if someone wanted to concentrate on your firm, they can potentially do so. So the goal of information security in a lot of ways is to put enough hurdles between you and the hackers to really mitigate them, or unless they're extremely persistent, is to make it very difficult for them where they go elsewhere. So that's a lot of the goal of information security, is to provide additional layers. In the industry, we call it defense in depth. So think of your house. If you're protecting your house, right now you may just have a door, but if you have a fence in front, maybe you have some alarms, a Ring camera or cameras deterrence in your yard, or maybe a walkway that's very difficult to get through unless you have direct access through a private pathway. Those are all ways to deter burglars or people to get to compromise your property. So that again is the goal, to not be a statistic and lead yourself into a situation where your firm's going to be financially liable. And $4.5 million is a lot of money. So again, this doesn't speak into the impact of reputational damage, the loss of future firm clients and so forth. So just taking that into consideration, definitely invest in information security. All right, next slide, please, Susie. So how do we go about taking an approach in building out the information security management system? Again, that's your security program. Confidentiality is one of the core principles, right? In our world with information security, we call it CIA, the CIA triad, not to be confused with a three-letter government agency, but it's a very common, knowledgeable, easy acronym to follow. So confidentiality from a law firm perspective is very well known. Obviously, you guys care about understanding and protecting attorney-client privileges, the information that's shared between you and your clients, of course. So again, from an information security management system perspective, we care about protecting that data. We care about making sure only the sender and receiver are allowed to see that information. So what is integrity? Integrity is about protecting the message that's sent between the client and the attorney. If you're using digital means, then potentially they can always be altered in between. So we want to protect that And through encryption, through other methods, we can ensure that the message being sent is the message being received. And then availability. Availability is about ensuring that the services for data digitization or access to your platforms is available for all users. That includes you and all your clients out there. So the approach that we take from an information security perspective highlights these key principles in every single control. So with that in mind, that's how we go about building out a security program. So the next slide, Susie, please. So this is how, based on the principles, we can go about building out a strong security program. So when we think about what are the key criteria or key ingredients in a strong security program, it really starts with policies and procedures. Without policies and procedures, people don't really know how to act or what the expectations are and so forth. So from a security policy perspective, there can be quite a few. Maybe when you joined the law firm, you had to sign acceptable use policies and other information security policies that are required as part of the onboarding process. Obviously, ethics is very important in the legal sector. You guys probably had to sign those as well. So very important policies exist because that defines the standards, the behavior, the requirements for your business and how you act. And the procedures are more specific process in how you go about doing a particular task or how you handle data or how you engage with your clients or how you access data and so forth. So I'll go back real quick to the foundational controls. These are pretty much an expectation for every single firm, every organization out there. Multi-factor authentication. I'm sure you guys have seen it or have it implemented in most of your applications that you use today, whether it be financial, personally, or professionally. If you don't have MFA, multi-factor authentication enabled, you must do it today because the compromise on identity is really how the majority of threat actors, hackers get into your environment. So when they compromise your credentials, they're able to take that and really wreak havoc, especially with the data that they can potentially access. And then this could also lead to more financial harm, such as ransomware that could be implemented in your environment. And this is where it's very important to have strong data backups. If you don't have backups, regular backups, and especially backups that are separated as different accounts, then potentially the compromise of a privileged account would allow a hacker to be able to encrypt all your data, delete all your backups, and then send you a ransomware demand. And if you don't have backups, then basically all the data that you had access to, you won't have access to. You won't be able to engage with your clients. You won't be able to engage with any other third parties or even internally. And that's a serious risk to the business. And sometimes you'll see in the news too, healthcare providers, utility companies, sometimes they're out for multiple months because they're trying so hard to recover. And such a big ordeal. And sometimes you're talking about tens of thousands of employees are impacted. They're not able to be productive during these events. So that's very important. And then a strong security awareness training program should be highly prevalent. It's not just about understanding what's being trained, it's actually the application of it as well. So one good way to understand that the training is working is when the security department or group is actually getting more people providing feedback or sending notifications of things that they're concerned about, either by email, text messages, other communication. If you're unsure, the general direction is to report it, right? So the more reports you have, the more it shows that your security awareness training program is working. So obviously the expectation for people in the legal field is not to be security experts, but certainly anything that doesn't feel right, of course, you should report it. And then just be on the lookout for malicious links and emails or emails, especially coming from users you don't recognize or potentially domains that have been altered. So you might be working with a person named Alan Smith, but if it comes from Alan Smith with a domain that doesn't look like the actual firm itself, so that could be one of the attacks that these hackers can get in and try to compromise your systems. So we have a lot of advanced tools as well from technology perspective to protect everybody. And that includes the endpoint security. So on your laptops, typically there's tools like Microsoft Defender, CrowdStrike, or other tools to kind of warn and mitigate the risks for you in case you inadvertently click on a link or download something. So those kind of technological controls can really help you. And this is where making sure you have a strong security program and to invest in that really makes sense. So companies like ours, we help you guys build out security programs or help advise on what's the next steps or how we get in terms of maturity from level 1 to level 5. And this is why ISO 27001 is also so important, because if it provides the standards or the foundations, baseline, and the pillars that I mentioned before around technology, people, organization, and physical security risks. So it has all these different controls within those pillars, and then it allows you to build a strong security foundation based on those pillars and the controls that are defined as part of it. So I'll push it over to the next slide, Susie.
And I think it's my cue.
Yep, and I'm passing over to you, Nelly. So thank you.
Thank you, Will. What Will mentioned, I think it's important to recognize that these sort of practical measures are not just general best practices, but they are directly derived from this international standard list of controls. So in the ISO 27001, there is a list of controls that company may need to consider as building its security practice. So for instance, sort of the essential control, those foundational security controls common in legal field is MFA. So MFA is multi-factor authentication. Authentication is how is it that the system knows that you are who you say you are? And those factors, what is it that you know, or what you know, what you are, what you have. So for example, if you have at least 2 of those factors, then you can authenticate, or the system will recognize you. So you should probably think of how you could configure your system or set up your system to at least have 2 factors. What you know, your password, and what you have, the code that you receive on your phone. What you are is probably facial recognition, your fingerprints, that is sort of a MFA, if in case some of the terms we use are not super familiar to you. And that directly comes from the list of controls in the standards. Same for backups, same for security awareness training. It is required, those controls are required by the standards, so that's where they are derived. But again, when you start out, you don't really need to have all of them that are in the standard. You just look through the foundational and then you slowly build out. So we'll just outline the logical phased approach to building that system. Now the question shifts from how do we from how do we manage our risks to how do we prove to a client, a regulator, or a partner that our security program, our ISMS, is truly effective and mature. So, and then the answer is the ISO 27001 cert or certification process. The standard is not just the internationally recognized benchmark, it is a very credible tool that you have to build trust and formally demonstrate that your firm is adhering to those standards, to those global security standards. The certification is powerful because it shows that an independent, licensed, accredited third party verified the security program, and that it's been formal, impartial confirmation that your security program meets those standards. And it's not only provides peace of mind, but it helps you to win large enterprise clients, because for many of them, this certification, as I mentioned, is no longer a negotiable prerequisite. They require many professional services firms to have that. So the certificate itself helps to build and strengthen clients' trust. Let's go to the next slide. So achieving certificate is a two-phased process. When you are considering ISO certification itself, so you prepare and then you have a certificate. So just one point to keep in mind, you need to ensure that there is a clear separation and independence of expertise and function between the experts who prepare you and those who audit. So there needs to be an independence. I cannot help you, I cannot prepare you, because then I cannot really audit you. Of course, it will be perfect because I prepare you, right? So there is an independence here. And in the preparation phase, it includes internal audit, as Will mentioned. And during that phase, you build your security program, you fully implement it, and then you are ready for the formal assessment. The second phase is more of this external assessment and the certification itself. An accredited, experienced auditor and certification body, it's a term in the ISO cert certification body, which is my firm, for example, we conduct an impartial assessment, and upon successful review of your security program, we confirm that everything is in place, implemented, and you are in conformance with the standards. We issue the cert. On the next two slides, we'll just go a little bit in a little more detail for each of these phases. Let's go to the next slide, Susie. So when you prepare, you first define the scope. And the scope is super important. It kind of defines what are the boundaries, what data is in scope that is going to be part of this program, what teams or groups, what offices, if you have more than one office, what processes are included. It sort of involves evaluating your firm's structure, internal structure. It could be very simple or it could be rather complex. Do you have any legal or contractual obligations? Like, do you need to follow data privacy laws like GDPR or CCPA? Maybe you are required to follow some of the state specific breach notification laws. Any industry compliance requirements like HIPAA, for example, if you have healthcare clients. Getting this step right is super important. Second, you are required to conduct a risk assessment, as Will mentioned earlier. This is sort of at the heart of your security program. You perform this detailed, systematic identification of risk and assessment of risk to see what are the threats to your data, what are the threats to your firm. And once those risks are identified, you figure out, okay, are you going to accept that risk? Or are you going to mitigate or put something in place to reduce the likelihood or reduce the impact if that risk were to happen, or both? Or are you going to maybe transfer risk, like you are going to buy cybersecurity insurance to transfer the risk? Third, you then implement those controls to mitigate the risk. For those risks that you deem to mitigate, you implement controls. And that is going to be, again, based on your risk treatment plan. You select from that standard, from the ISO standard, the controls that may be applicable to you to mitigate those risks. Those technical measures, process controls that are, again, listed in the standard. And finally, you have an internal audit and what's called management review. It's important that this audit is performed by somebody other than who designed your program or other than who performs those controls. Again, for the independence and impartiality, sort of that those feedback on your program, on your controls is unbiased. An internal audit is pretty vital, pretty important, just to check that and verify that everything is effective. And if there are any gaps that you missed while you were preparing, it's good to identify and fix them before the external assessment. Typically, from my experience, it takes about 6 to 9 months for this preparation, although it could be done much sooner. It depends, again, on the size of your firm, on the scope, on how much resources and time you want to dedicate to prepare for the formal certification. Susie, let's go to the next slide. So this is about sort of a certificate life cycle. After you prepared, you move to the external audit, to the external certification, which is a pretty comprehensive assessment, especially in year one. The first year is most sort of a in-depth review of your program. So typically it would take maybe a week and a half to 2 weeks, depending on the scope again of how long the audit itself would take. And during that audit, we will review all the documentation and every in-scope control to look how is it implemented. Do you have the evidence? Do you have the proof of that's been implemented? This audit validates that your security program, your ISMS, is in full conformance with these international standards and is operational. So once all the external audit activities are completed, we issue a formal certificate. We add the certificate to the international database of all certificates where anybody can go and verify, validate that you have achieved the certification. It's important to note that this first year, this initial cert is a start of your certification life cycle. The certificate itself is valid for 3 years, and you need to have surveillance audits in the subsequent 2 years, sort of to show that you continue to maintain your program. It's a continuous improvement of your program. It's not just a single snapshot in time. You got your cert and you are done. You don't need to do any of those controls anymore. It's an ongoing process. So there is a year 2 and year 3 are surveillance audit. So you have first years in your cert, second year surveillance, third year surveillance. And I see that I had a typo for the research for year 3. It's actually should be year 4. So the surveillance audits are partial in scope. Again, it's not going to be as much in depth as the first year. It's about 50–60%. We will look at each control at least once over the period of those 2 surveillance audits. And the purpose, again, is just simply to verify that you continue to maintain your security program, that controls are still effective, that you are continue to address new threats, new risks. Obviously, the environment around you is continuously changing. Regulations are changing. Privacy or sectorial sort of a compliance requirements may be changing. So your security system, your security program needs to adjust to that. So those annual checks are mandatory to maintain your certification status. And then at the end of those 3 years, on year 4, you will go through a full scope recertification. It's not just partial review of your controls, but a review of all controls, and you get recertified. And again, you start the new 3-year cycle. So initial surveillance, recert, surveillance, recert. So again, the surveillance audit's probably like 2 days, not anything major. Again, this structured sort of a cycle ensures that your security program remains strong and adapts to new threats and maintain its credibility. Let's move to the next slide. And just to illustrate, this is more of the case study to illustrate this power of this decision to get certified. I just thought that I'll share one example from one of our clients. Is the 60-person litigation firm from DC. They specialize in insurance recovery, disputes, and commercial litigation. They utilize some of the legal technology services like e-discovery, digital forensics, and they have access to massive volumes of their client data, privileged data that they need to safeguard. So they came to us facing the challenge. Despite having good internal security, they were being disqualified from acquiring certain high-value enterprise clients because they lacked that formal, independent, and verified security certification. So they undertook the ISO 27001 journey. They hired specialists to help them with getting ready with internal audit, and as we discussed a few minutes earlier, and hired us to conduct the certification. And ultimately, they successfully achieved achieved their ISO cert. And then it sort of more or less immediately became their marketing tool, if you will. It transitioned their security into more of a advantage, showing their clients that they have been certified by an independent party, that they're implementing and applying international standards to handling their clients' data. And it did open doors to them, leading to acquisition of a new, very large enterprise client, sort of getting a quite significant ROI on this endeavor. So for law firms, I guess a key takeaway is that firms that handle sensitive corporate data or want to work with corporate clients, ISO 27001 may need to be considered, and it may be a strategic decision that you need to think through. A strong ISMS and the cert will show that you have those security controls that could provide you a competitive advantage, that can help you build and maintain trust with your corporate clients and help you with future growth. Next slide. Will?
All right, great. Thanks, Nelly. So you provide a great practical understanding of why ISO 27001 certification is very important. I'll provide some key takeaways you can go with today. It's not necessarily something you have to do today, but keep thinking about and plan for it. We harped quite a bit on multi-factor authentication. Again, this is probably the weakest link and the most exposed method for hackers, threat actors to be able to get into your environments, get into your system. So if you don't have MFA in place today, and sometimes you have MFA for partially for some of your applications, but not for all. So you should definitely consider MFA for all your applications and only work with vendors that support MFA, because again, if the credentials are compromised, then that treasure trove of data will be accessible to those threat actors, and they can hold you ransom, or they can publicly disclose it, and it can cause catastrophic harm to you or your business. Anybody who's dealt with identity theft, fraud, should be highly sensitive to this, because once that information has been exposed, it's very difficult to protect it again or get it back. So multi-factor authentication, as Nelly had mentioned, gives you that secondary level of credentialing to protect yourself. So MFA is only going to be available from typically your smart device through your passcodes, or maybe a push notification, or some method where really only you will see that notification. And there's a term in the industry as well called MFA fatigue. So don't blindly just approve of everything that does pop up on the phone. Make sure it's 100% something you initiated that caused the query from your phone to occur. So again, if you want to remember one thing, it has to be MFA from this session today. And I'll talk about public Wi-Fi. So everybody uses Wi-Fi these days. Obviously, when you're traveling or away from home or away from office, and you just want to do some work. Sometimes you're in the coffee shops and you get on public Wi-Fi, and you're gracious of being able to access the internet. But it's not always for your benefit. So potentially hackers can set up their own wireless access points, and it could be something called airport free, and then you connect to it. And basically what they're doing is they're proxying connections for you, and they're potentially exposing your data, potentially your passwords, your information to their systems, where they can compromise that information. So one way to thwart against such attacks is to use VPN. So VPN stands for virtual private networks. It's typically a secure connection between your laptop and your company. So by creating a VPN tunnel, everything within that tunnel is encrypted. And if you pass anything within that tunnel, eavesdroppers will not be able to decrypt that data, at least very easily. So that's one way to really protect yourself. And ultimately, if you don't have to use public Wi-Fi, don't do so. If you can tether to your phone, let's say if you want to do some financial banking information or banking services, tether to your phone and do that. That would be a much safer way. And pretty much everybody has access or rights on their phone to provide tethering services, right? So one other thing I want to leave you guys with today is think about conducting a tabletop exercise. So tabletop exercises allow a firm or any organization to kind of talk through a particular situation. Of course, you guys should have some subject matter experts on the topics that you'll be discussing. Typically, a good one to start with is ransomware. Like, what will your firm do? Who are the key contact points? What will happen if you do not have access to email, you do not have access to Teams or any sort of messaging communications? How will you guys contact each other? How will you guys continue to be able to provide for your clients? Is business continuity a key piece of these tabletop exercises? Absolutely. So trying to ensure that your business continues through these incidents is highly important. So going through these tabletop exercises, you're able to walk through, talk about all the different issues, and hopefully find the gaps, address those gaps, and then performing it again at a later point in time to really improve on your overall security services and capabilities. And of course, the end goal is to keep business running, to be able to continue to transact with your clients, and even in terms of these disasters that do happen, at least understanding who the key contact points, what your process is going to be, is highly important. And walking through this on a regular basis, preferably annually at a minimum, will be highly beneficial to your firm. Just again, because the threats, the risks are always constantly changing within information security, and we have to do everything we can to be prepared for those kind of incidents. And now I'll just wrap it up real quick. Again, some of the key things that we talked about today, and hopefully you walk away with, is just understanding that a security program is paramount for any business, regardless of how small you are to however big you are, from one person to thousands and thousands of different people. Data is crucial. It needs to be protected. It has very grave consequences if it's exposed, especially if you as an attorney or lawyers would know, like I mentioned before, with the attorney-client privileges, that's your legal responsibility to protect that information. And we do so from an information security management system perspective, is we try to do it from a technical, organizational, and other levers that we utilize to protect that information. So, and then getting that formal certification really puts that stamp of approval on your business to show to other clients or partners that you will work with that, hey, security is part of our DNA. Even though we're a law firm, even though we focus on legal matters, security is still a key piece, and we do so to protect it, and we have certified to show you that we do care about that data protection. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Nelly, do you have any final words that you want to say?
Just to conclude, the current environment requires a structured and systematic risk management approach. The ISO standard will help you build a comprehensive security management program to protect your client's sensitive data. And we do encourage you to start the dialogue internally if ISO is something that needs to be put on your firm's roadmap, something that may help you also transform your security posture and possibly have new business opportunities. Again, thank you for your time and attention. I know we have only 1 minute left, but we'll be happy to address any questions that you may have about implementing security program or navigating the certification process. Thank you again.
This concludes today's presentation. Thank you so much, Nelly and Will, for your time, and thank you so much to our audience. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you very much.